Happy New Year and welcome to the first Red Robin podcast of 2023 and the fourth pre-season mini-pod. For this episode, I am delighted to be joined by podcast regular James Purling as we cast an eye over our upcoming pre-season hit-out against Featherstone Rovers, which is, of course, also serving up as a testimonial for former Robin and current Featherstone Rovers player Craig Hall. Delighted to say Craig joins us later on in the podcast as he discusses his time at 𝗕𝘂𝗱𝗴𝗲𝗀 Rovers and lets us know what we could expect on Friday evening. James, Happy New Year to you. How are you doing?
Happy New Year to you, John. Yeah, it's good to be back. Looking forward to the summer rugby, getting a bit warm back into the body. But no, it's great to be looking forward to a game. It might only be a friendly, but for someone like Craig, it's a big one for Craig, and hopefully gets a good turnout.
Yes, definitely. And I suppose pre-season, we was fortunate we had the World Cup, didn't we? That kept people's entertainment going in rugby league, and then pre-season always seems to last forever. But now, like you say, we've got a game on Friday, game tomorrow, which is whetted the appetite for everybody. And I tell you what, that season will come round. That season opener against Wigan will come round pretty quick, I think.
Yeah, it will. It's just like I said. Like you say, it's good that we've had the World Cup, keep things going. But you can sort of see the season now within touching distance, and certain excitement is building, and certainly lots to look forward to.
Definitely, and obviously we've had a change of head coach. We've had a few transitions, players in, players out. What have you made of pre-season so far, and what you've heard?
I think all the noises that are coming out of the squad have been very positive. I think I think it's quite illuminating Jordan Abdul's interview last week when he was talking about Willie Peters isn't going to be picking people on reputation. He's going to be picking people on form, which is really that's all we want. And Jordan acknowledged that last season he wasn't playing as well as he could have been, and that's what we need. We need the players to be fighting for the places and know that they're going to be content on that pitch. And giving 100%, and that's all. As fans, that's all we can ask. Compete. That's all we want to be able to do. I think. So
definitely. And what I would say is the competition for places has probably never been hotter than it is now, especially at the start of the season. I know we've had the disappointing news that 𝗕𝘂𝗱𝗴𝗲𝗀 suffered an injury. 𝗧𝘆𝗿𝗿𝗲𝗀 as well, but you still say there's plenty in the tank, isn't there? So competition is going to be hotter than ever, and I guess nobody's position is guaranteed. And who knows, Willie Peters might throw a few curveballs in terms of players and the positions they play now that he's had chance to look at the players and make his own opinions. I suppose one thing that is worth noting is the earliness that the Rovers players came into pre-season. It was good that Willie Peters got here early. He's definitely made his mark on the side, and we've been able to benefit from a warm weather training camp in Tenerife. And, pre-season, I suppose it's the favourite time of year for everybody, isn't it? Every club, every supporter, because we're all in the grand final when we're talking. We haven't lost a game yet, so it's fantastic. But, I agree with you, James. It's all been positive, hasn't it? And I suppose now it's the time for talking's done, and it's now time to see what they can produce on the pitch. I suppose one question for you, James, is probably the revelation that we're operating at close to salary cap or at cap. You look at the squad depth. Do you think Willie Peters is a little bit under pressure in his first season, or do you think he'll get a bit of grace from the Rovers faithful?
I'm hoping he'll get a bit of grace because at the end of the day, we've got to, we're acknowledging it's his first role as a full-time, the first team coach, but by the same token, he's got a very strong pedigree from the NRL. I mean, you don't coach under the likes of Wayne Bennett without sort of picking up a few tips here and there. So hopefully that's going to come into the reckoning. So, I hope fans will give him the opportunity, and I think a lot of it's going to come down to the style of play that he adopts. I think, as I said, the noise has been coming out pre-season, been very positive. I think if he starts off, playing an expansive game, sort of really wanting to sort of entertain the crowd as well. But I think for me, that's one side of it, but the other side of it is just, probably just as important, probably more important for us, really, is what's he done from the defensive perspective? Because I think, if we look over the last sort of 2 or 3 seasons, that's probably been the area where we've lacked. So I think, if we start to see some progress in that area, and I think, having 𝓡𝓸𝓫𝓲𝓷𝓼 on board for a full pre-season, I think hopefully that will have sort of put a bit of steel into the defensive setup. I think people will give him time to the team to develop. We all, again, there's been another lot of new players coming in. It's going to take time for them to bed. I think, again, I hope fans give the likes of 𝗕𝘂𝗱𝗴𝗲𝗁, Kennedy, and so the chance to actually embed themselves in and sort of take the time to sort of prove themselves in a new country, in a new competition. So yeah, I think there is that first season. I think it probably has got us essentially not free hits, probably the wrong word, but there will be a sort of decent honeymoon phase.
Yeah, I mean, I look at it and I think this could be one of the most competitive Super Leagues we've had in a long time, if not ever. You look at all the teams who are in the league, and probably bar Wakefield or Leigh, every other team will be expecting to finish in the playoffs. So I do wonder if the part of the planning of getting to pre-season early is to get off to a good start in Super League, because I think it's going to be more important than ever that we get points on the board as soon as possible, because you don't want to be leaving it to put a run together at the back end of the season where it's desperation time almost. I think there's going to be a big push to get points on the board early, and that opening game against Wigan, I suppose, represents a good opportunity to do that. But then again, we saw last season, didn't we? We had our hopes built up prior to the Wigan home game, and they were dashed as 2 knock-ons from Wood, and everyone was leaving pretty deflated. So it's going to be really interesting to see how we start the season, because I think, like I said, there's going to be more pressure than ever to get points on the board early.
Yeah, I totally agree. I totally agree with you. If you look at the league this year, I think it is probably going to be the most competitive ever. I think I've tried to, I've not written down anything yet, trying to put down where sort of prediction of 1 to 12. And I think the only one you can sort of, for me, with any fairly confidence put is Wakefield at 12. I think they've had a lot of players going out. They're not really I don't think brought as many people in, but then by the same token, they've got an unknown coach. You don't know what effect he's going to have on it. But like I say, going into that first game, we want to get off to a good start. And I think we can probably take a lesson from what Wigan did to us last season. I think in Wigan in 2021, we're in absolute shambles, and we put the cleaners through them in at home, and then we went to that first game full of confidence, etc., and they did the same to us. So I think it's certainly possible to turn around with a rookie coach, and I think we now have that strength of depth that we haven't had in years gone by. That will hopefully give us that, and as you said earlier, that's going to push for really strong competition for places, and none of the players, no matter who they are, can rest on the laurels. They've got to be performing when they step on that pitch. They've got to be performing and got to be impressing Willie Peters.
Yeah, definitely. And we're going to come on to the Featherstone game very soon. Obviously, we've got a chat with Craig Hall to play, which I'm really looking forward to. But who are you looking forward to seeing in particular next season, James, or this season? Sorry.
Oh gosh. I'm looking forward to seeing the forwards. I'm looking forward to seeing James Purling. I think a lot of noises that Wakefield fans made about him leaving. I think in the sort of type of players he was for them. I think looking forward to seeing some solidity from him. Also, I think Sam Luckley. Again, he's a sort of player I think we've probably missed a number of years. He may not get in stats from the beginning, but he's a sort of player who can come off the bench and create an impact, which we've really probably lacked over the last sort of few years. But I think we're probably also 𝗕𝘂𝗱𝗴𝗲𝗁 and how sort of what sort of impact he's going to have. I think he's got the potential to be, potentially man of steel. Put it out there now. I think could potentially come with that sort of reputation. But it'll be interesting to see how what sort of bond he plays with whoever's on the right wing. And again, it's either going to be Ethan Ryan or, for me, or senior. And I think if you put either of those two on the right wing, it doesn't look weak, and that total back line, even with 𝗕𝘂𝗱𝗴𝗲𝗀 and Ryan Hall coming into their sort of later years, it looks pretty formidable, formidable setup. But for me, it's all about we've got that forward depth now. Can they deliver and sort of give us the backs that go forward that we probably have lacked for probably back last season and a half or so.
Well, the last Rovers player to get linked with a man of steel or tip for the man of steel was Brad 𝗕𝘂𝗱𝗴𝗲𝗀, of course, wasn't it? By Phil Clark.
Well.
I hope you haven't put the 𝗕𝘂𝗱𝗲𝗀𝗀.
I got it. I should have said it, should I?
But no, he's definitely one I'm looking forward to seeing. For me, it's I'm really looking forward to see Frankie Holton. I really think he's going to cement that place in the second row. Obviously featured heavily last season. Played in the World Cup, and I think he's a really exciting player, and I think he's hopefully someone who's going to be at the club for a number of years. I'm really looking forward to seeing him play, and of course, you start looking at the flair players, SKD, Mikey Lewis, Jordan Abdul, throw Rowan Milnes into there. It's going to be really interesting to see, first of all, the brand of rugby league we play and how these players then fare under Willie Peters. So it's all exciting stuff. But they're the current players. Of course, on Friday, we take to the field against Featherstone, in which is Craig Hall's testimonial. Fantastic servant to Featherstone Rovers. And I'm sure if you asked many Rovers supporters, he's someone who people would still like to see at the club. He made 118 appearances. 115 of them were starting, 3 substitute appearances, 69 tries, 81 goals, 2 drop goals with a total of 440 points. He's, of course, also played for Wakefield, Toronto, Leigh, Widnes, them lot across the river. He's currently enjoying fantastic time at Featherstone. 771 points he scored for them. The fans absolutely love him. I think, to be fair, James, every club he's been at, the fans have really took to Craig, and I think he's really on his pro. When you look back at Craig Hall's contribution to Rovers over his 2 spells, there's not really a lot of disappointment, is he? When he tended to play, he seems to have a good game for the Robins.
He did, yeah, and it was always great to see him play. And I think I was watching the highlights reel that Rovers, the club put on the social media this week, and you think, look at some of the tries he got. They were just outstanding. And I don't think you probably really appreciate the speed he actually had, and I think looking at some of those tries, you're just thinking, wow, we've just missed that, and it was such a shame that it was the way he ended up leaving the club, and you've just got to feel like if he'd have been still here, he would have certainly done a job for us, and there's just so many good points and highlights that he's done. You just think it's hard to think of a time when he played a bad game. Every game he always put 100% in. He was there to sort of pick up tries from distance, etc. And then the drop goal. Was it 2 he said he got, and one of that one against the other lot. To win the derby. It's just. Things like that just stick in the memory, and it's been great to hope you're going to get a great turnout tomorrow night.
Yeah, fantastic memories, and I think what really impresses me about Craig is, especially his time at the Robins, is he comes from a big rugby league family. His dad Dave, of course, Featherstone Rovers legend. Other people, lesser people, might wilt under that pressure and the expectation that comes with having someone like Dave as his father. But Craig seems to excel, and he didn't seem to feel the pressure. And like I said, he produced on numerous occasions the goods when there was needed. So, yeah, he's always going to be a favourite of the Robins. And we're going to hear from Craig very shortly. But he's absolutely delighted that he's able to secure Rovers as opponents for his testimonial, especially after the sort of acrimonious way that he departed the club, and the way it was handled and the way it was dealt with. Featherstone Rovers still do hold a place close to his heart. So without further ado, I caught up with Craig earlier in the week just to discuss his testimonial, to preview the game on Friday night, and to listen to some of his recollections about playing for Featherstone Rovers. On the Red Robin podcast, spoke to you quite ago now when we first started out. A lot of changes there, a lot of changes in your career as well. You've got the opportunity to celebrate your testimonial, which is something you must be really pleased with and something you're very proud about. Must be a lot of emotions going through your mind at the moment with it being your testimonial season.
Yeah, to be honest, I've never had so much going through to sort and kits to sort and corporate and games and events and that. But it's pretty exciting. I think I'm waiting for fixtures on Christmas to obviously make some more events throughout the year. I'm very lucky to get 12 months, so got plenty of time to do something.
Yeah, one thing that is for sure, Craig, is that every club you've been at, you've been a fan's favourite. The fans have always taken to you. That's no different at Featherstone, and obviously Featherstone Rovers is still a player that many supporters hold close to their heart. You must have been delighted to be able to support Rovers for your testimonial fixture.
Yeah, obviously as soon as I got the testimonial granted, I got in touch with the club, and Lakin was, it was fantastic. From one message, he said yes straight away. They've worked really well with Featherstone and Martin Vickers, and I'm over the moon to get the game again. A club where I spent so long.
Yeah, and especially your second time around, your departure from the club wasn't exactly the happiest time for you. It must be pleasing now that you get the chance to see the Rovers fans again, and Rovers fans will get the chance to see you out on the pitch again.
Yeah, 100%. I was in pre-season, still having a year on the contract, so I didn't really get to say bye or thank you to our fans. So next Friday is definitely an opportunity, and from what I'm hearing, there's quite a few coming across, and hopefully there'll be a few more jumping the cars and come over to what should be a great night for me and family.
Yeah, definitely. And normally, Craig, when it's a testimonial, people think you're coming to the end of your career, but you're very much probably still in your prime. I mean, Featherstone, 63 games, 771 points. You've still got a while to go yet before you hang up the boots, haven't you?
Yeah, I won't mind making that 1,000. That'd be all right, wouldn't it? That Featherstone, and then I'm enjoying it. I've left away from back, so I want another one. So I've enjoyed pre-season. The boys, so I don't think the age is really bothering me, and there's a bit of experience there. So I'm looking forward to doing whatever I can this year to hopefully stick on for, like I said, a couple of years.
And big check Featherstone, obviously Brian McDermott departed, Sean Long's come in. Change over in the playing staff. Is this the season that Featherstone are going to reach Super League? Because it seems to be more important than ever, doesn't it? That the sooner you can get in there, the better, especially with all the plans around IMG and the future of Super League. Is there a bit of pressure being applied on you to do it this season?
No one say pressure. I think with the squad that Long has put together, and obviously the stuff that he's bringing in, there's definitely a bit of a confidence there. Obviously, out on a couple of £1 million games, and the way that last year ended was very disappointing for a lot of us. So we've made a couple of obviously left the club. So really looking forward to this year. We just need to be our best every week. I think there's quite a few teams that have signed pretty well in the Championship this year, so it's going to be a good competition. We just need to make sure we're up there come the end.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be exciting. And I suppose, Craig, as you've gotten on in your career and you've played a variety of roles, is there any adaptations you've made to your game, the older you've got and the more experienced you've become?
I'm not too sure. I've always been one of them that plays what he sees, and if an opportunity comes to obviously attack with the ball, I'm always going to take it. I think there's been a couple of coaches along the way that have tried to calm me down with stuff like that. But I think Longy's the halfback that he was, and obviously Leon's in as well. If we see anything, he wants us to play. So I'm really excited for this year and any opportunity that he wants us to take. So I'll take it.
Yeah, definitely. And if we move back to your time at the Robins, I mean, first time around, I know a lot of supporters didn't want you to leave. Second time around, a lot of Rovers supporters didn't want you to leave. And I suppose when you look back at your time with the Robins, it must be a lot of fond memories of your time playing in front of the East Stands, the derbies, etc. You know, there's much memories for you.
Yeah, it's definitely, when you leave, it's the derby games that you miss. You know, the first time I left, I went to obviously Wakefield, and the first game for Wakefield was a Wakefield-𝗕𝗂𝗃, like a derby, like obviously because they're pretty close, but it just didn't. It just wasn't the same. You know, you miss them in the atmosphere that you get at Craven Park, or if you go over to KC, it's absolutely, it was definitely missed. And like I say, the East Stand, always absolutely unbelievable. I remember, you know, we took a bit of an add-in one Good Friday, one Monday after a Good Friday win at Hull, and I think Wigan came absolutely hammered us. We didn't have much of a team out, but yeah, there was still thousands, you know, cheering at the end of the game. It's just unbelievable what the fans have been like from day one to even now. Like, I get messages of support. It's been fantastic.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously a big rugby league family. Where I was lucky enough to speak to your dad previously in one of the heritage casts. You know, so there's fantastic rugby league heritage with the Halls, and you must be delighted that your family are going to be able to join you probably next Friday and join you at a lot of your testimonial events.
Yeah, there's quite a lot of them coming over. Obviously, there's tables and that in the bar with have something to eat, so there's quite a few of them staying in there. Obviously, my mum and dad have followed me everywhere I've been. Absolutely loved it when I was at OKR, but I think at the minute they're really liking Featherstone. They've kind of moved over. To be honest, mostly over their own room in a hotel down the road, and the locals in the pubs across the way, and you know, they're really enjoying it. So I guess any chance my dad can have a drink, he
yeah, and it is that community aspect, though, isn't it? That being made to feel welcome, Craig, that you'll probably experience that at most of the clubs you've been at, and it's, you know, it's a two-way thing. I suppose the supporters have embraced the way you've represented the club, and you've embraced the supporters as well. And I think that's why you've managed to forge a special bond with a lot of the supporters at the clubs you've been at, especially 𝗕𝘂𝗱𝗏𝗏 Rovers. Going back to your time at the Robins, when you look at the players that you played with, who was your favourite teammates that you enjoy playing with?
I'm doing like a brochure program. Hopefully, it'll be ready for Friday. And you know, the players that I've played with from starting to coming through, I think, you know, they've just been absolutely awesome. I think from the Rovers days, obviously when I first signed, it was pretty hard to get in because, you know, the backs was pretty established. You had Foxy and Colby on the wings, and Jake and Willie Briscoe fullback. So I kind of had to be patient to make my way in. I think in my time, who stands out, probably, you know, 𝗕𝘂𝗁𝗲 was a leader. He was up there every game. Obviously, 𝗕𝘂𝗁𝗲𝗁 before he left to Australia, and absolutely smashed Australia. So there's been some great players, not just for playing for OKR, but, you know, throughout my full career.
Yeah, it's funny. I was just looking at some of Dobson's stats from when he was at Rovers, and 4 seasons in a row he scored over 200 points. 3 seasons he scored over 250 points, and I think people forget what a phenomenal talent, especially Dobson, was at the time, and not just a player but a leader as well. He absolutely marshalled the boys on the pitch, but was then able to come up with the goods when needed as well. So he was you more than held your own, Craig, when you did get into the team, and I suppose now you've moved on to Featherstone and you're enjoying your time at the club, and you've got a year left on your contract. What do you think the future holds for you after that?
I'm not too sure. I've been doing a bit of community stuff with the club, you know, obviously going into primary schools, secondary schools, which I've enjoyed. So there's a route that way, but I've not really sunk my teeth into what I'm going to do after rugby. I think, you know, it's coming up, but like, I think you don't really think about it sometimes. Still enjoying my rugby, still, you know, the body's still working okay. So, you know, I think when it comes to it, I'm going to have to make a decision. But at the minute, I'm I'm just going day by day, to be honest.
Yeah. I wonder, are you taking any inspiration from Ryan Hall? Because he looks like he seems to be getting better the older he gets.
Yeah, he's just a freak, and he always has been. I think he's got the way he played, obviously last year, since he's come back from Australia, he's absolutely killed it. So I think hopefully he'll have another decent year for the boys, and obviously that left edge is pretty potent in attack. Yeah,
definitely. And we'll come to Friday's game. It's your second hit out of the season. You played Castleford in your first. Was it Castleford in your first pre-season? It's Rovers' first pre-season game under Willie Peters. What are you expecting from the Robins on Friday?
Well, I think they've already got 2 friendlies, haven't they, going into the league? So I think that they're going to be bringing a strong squad, which people are going to need runouts. I think we needed it New Year's Eve, so obviously that was a couple of weeks ago. So we're going to need it obviously again with it been 3 weeks. I think everything a bit like we was on New Year's Eve. Longy's brought a load of stuff in which you buy, and this is what friendly games are for. So everything that obviously Willie's drilled into the boys and they want to play. They'll probably try some stuff, and they'll just want to get a bit of momentum going into round 1.
Yeah, and I suppose the psychology for friendlies, I suppose it's a little bit weird sometimes, Craig, because obviously, like you just said, Longy's brought in new stuff for you to work on, and the result's not necessarily the most important part of the game. It's about probably patterns of play, all that kind of stuff. But rugby league's not a game that you can play at 50%, is it? You've got to be in it 100% all the time. You risk injuries, etc. So I suppose it's the mindset for friendlies. It's a little bit weird for players to try and start a pre-season. You don't want to get injured, etc. But you can't go into the game sort of half-hearted.
No, definitely not. A game's a game, do you know what I mean? And being competitive as sportsmen are, and obviously rugby players are, like when you're playing consec on the bus, like you want to win. It's just like a game you want to. Even though it's a friendly, we'll still want to win. But by winning, you need to play well and obviously do the things what you've been practicing on in pre-season, and it's definitely. A bit extra on your fitness, that you can do as much fitness as you want, but obviously when games start, it's just that little bit extra. So it'll be a blowout for both teams, but a blowout that'll hopefully be a good night.
Yeah. And Featherstone, you'll be going into it with a full squad.
Yeah, there was a few lads that didn't play from on New Year's Eve. Which I think will be running out this week. A couple of boys turned up for training this week. We've got a new kid from PNG and Akins who we signed from Lee. They're turned up. So whether they throw them in straight away, we'll have to see. But I think more or less, we're playing a pretty strong squad, and then we've only got the one friendly before we start. Obviously, where we play OKR, then we play Wakefield, and then our season starts. So I think it's on Longy now to decide what team he's going to be picking for that round 1.
Yeah, and I know lots of Rovers supporters are desperate to travel over and watch the game, not least because it's your testimonial. It's also obviously Rovers' first pre-season fixture. Supporters are desperate to see Willie Peters' side and how they might line up, especially, like you say, with them only having 2 pre-season friendlies. Tickets are, £10 for adults, £5 concessions. So if you're thinking about going and you haven't got your tickets yet, definitely make the journey over. Before we finish, Craig, just sum up your time with the Robins and how much the club means to you.
Obviously as a kid supporting the team, I don't think I had much choice really with my dad, but it was absolutely fantastic to be able to sign for the club, and then obviously sign for the club again. Both times I didn't believe times, and I think I've been very lucky to have obviously my dad and the family that I've got with the history that OK I have. And as a kid, I used to go to these the likes of Roy Allstock, Phil Lowe, Mike Smith, Roger Millward, and not really think much about it. But then obviously as you get older and you think I've been very lucky. Obviously very lucky to wear the shirt. was a moment for me. And, and these players, I think there's quite a few next Friday night, which they're going to be in the bar early on at Featherstone. So if you want to get over, they're going to get them on the mic, have a few chats with them, and hopefully have a bit of entertainment and atmosphere before the game starts. So they'll be over early. They'll be at the bar, I'm guessing. So it should be fun.
Yeah, well, I'm sure if Wayne Parker and his mob are travelling over, the bar will be doing plenty of business on Friday. So, yeah, definitely, mate. Craig Hall, 118 appearances, 115 starts, 69 tries, 81 goals, 444 points. Like I said, I know many Rovers supporters will be travelling over to support the game next on Friday, as will any other testimonial events you have, Craig. So please make sure you keep in touch so we can help spread the word and get people to your events. Been an absolute pleasure talking to you, Craig, and we genuinely wish you all the best in your testimonial year and for the rest of your career, mate. It's been a pleasure watching you in red and white, and like we say, let's hope for big numbers on Friday night supporting you.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks very much.
No worries. James, great guy, isn't he? Just seems a real nice lad, and we just want the best for him for his testimonial. We hope there'll be a good crowd. I think Featherstone are urging people to get the tickets in advance because they're expecting a big crowd, one of the biggest for a long time. So it looks like the people of Featherstone, and especially the people of East Hull, are going to be turning out to support Craig.
No, as I said, he fully deserves it. And just listening to that interview, I think he just I think it's a measure of the guy, how much he's respected by, not just Rovers fans, I think the whole of the rugby league community and all the clubs that he's played for. I think every club he's played for, he talks to any of their fans, and I think that, they'll give him, total respect and, appreciation of the efforts that he did when he represented them, their shirts as well. So, yeah, no, it is, hope he has a great testimonial. Thoroughly deserves it.
Yeah, and squad news ahead of the game tomorrow. Featherstone have named a 25-man squad. Sean Long is named quite a strong side for the game. 𝗕𝘂𝗱𝗲𝗀𝗀, Kyle Evans, 𝗕𝓚𝗓𝗄𝗧 Taylor, 𝗕𝘂𝗱𝗲𝗀𝗀 are all set to make the debut for Featherstone. If you go through the full list, they've got 𝗕𝘂𝗱𝗀𝗀𝗀, Luke Briscoe, Jack Bussey, Luke Cooper, Matthew Koza, John Davis, Brad Day, Kyle Evans, Dan Fleming, Jonathan Ford, Gareth Gale, of course, testimonial man Craig Hall, Chris Hankinson, who was at Toulouse last season, Josh Hardcastle, Connor Jones, Craig Cobchak, Thomas Lakins, Joe Lulai, James Lockwood, Junior Moores, Brandon Pickersgill, Gadwin Springer, Eli Taylor, Matthew Wildy, Mackenzie A. I mean, it's quite a formidable side for a championship. And of course, James, Sean Long, new head coach at Featherstone, took over from Brian McDermott. And we'll go into the Rover squad very shortly, but that looks like a very strong side. And of course, they've already played Castleford in a friendly, but it is like a very strong side that the Robins will be facing tomorrow night.
It does, and I was looking through it last night, and you think it'd be interesting to see how for the season how it goes for Sean Long. I think making that transition from an assistant into a first team coach. But so you look through that squad, and they've got some pretty good players for the level of the championship. People like Elijah Taylor. He was like one of Salford's standout players last season. And look how far they got. Jonathan Ford. We've all seen firsthand what he does when he was at Toulouse, and he always seemed to play out of his skin whenever he played against Rovers. And then Kyle Evans. How nobody else has managed to pick him up after his performances in the World Cup for Ireland. I think that's a fantastic signing for Featherstone. You just go through the whole team and look at it, and you're thinking, you know what, they're going to be competing for Super League into the for 2024. So very, very strong.
One
team.
player who impressed me, particularly last season at Toulouse, was Chris Hankinson. Absolutely lethal with a boot. So he almost guarantees your side of 2 points each game. So it is going to be a really exciting game. Rovers have named a 23-man squad. Tom Opacek, Louis Senior and Sam Luckley are all likely to make the first non-competitive debut for the Robins. There's also 6 academy graduates who have been named in the 23-man squad. Zach Fishwick, Connor Barley, Darnell Byers-Tash, Harvey Reynolds, Leo Tennyson, Noah Maul. They could all feature on Friday night. probably easier to go through the players who are missing rather than the ones who are actually in the squad. Lachlan Coote, Sean Kenny-Dowell, Ryan Hall, Jesse Sue, Matty Parcell, Kane Lynette. Of course, 𝗕𝘂𝗱𝗲𝗀𝗲 injured. Reece Kennedy, James Batchelor, Will Dagger, Mikey Lewis, and Yusuf Aydin all miss out. So it's not necessarily the strongest side that's going across the M62 to Featherstone tomorrow night, James, but it's still a formidable side with the likes of Ethan Ryan, Tom 𝗕𝘂𝗱𝗴𝗲𝗀, Jordan Abdul, George King, Frankie Holton, Jez Litton, Matty Staunton, Jimmy Kynehorst, Rowan Milnes. There's still some big name players in that squad.
There are, and I think that's sort of again just sort of testament to the recruitment that the club have done, and sort of recognising they had, after the sort of last season and all the injuries they had, and just sort of really having to blood the likes of 𝗧𝘆𝗿𝗂𝗏𝗃 and Conor Barley into the first team squad, and we now feel as though we've got that covering depth. And you look at, I think it's great that they've got some of the academy graduates in there, so it'd be a good test for them up against, as I said, a very good, strong Featherstone squad. But you then think about people like, 𝗧𝘃𝗍𝗃 and Conor Barley. You're thinking, actually, particularly 𝗧𝘃𝗍𝗃, he's actually, I'd see him as like an established first team member, but he's probably going in there, probably like into that squad as a junior member. And I think that's again testament to him and how he's progressed. But no, I think it's a decent squad for friendly. As I said, it's all about getting the hit outs, getting the formations going. But I think most importantly, just not getting injuries, which is something I think now the club really want, do they?
Yeah. I mean, it looks likely that our next friendly against the Leeds Rhinos, which is on the 5th of February at home, that is probably where we'll get the strongest indication of what our starting lineup will be for that Wigan opener. But when you look at the players who are going to play against Featherstone, I mean, can we assume that Tom 𝗕𝘂𝗃𝗏𝗃 will be partnering Ethan Ryan on the right, or could Ethan Ryan play at fullback? Obviously, we've got PLT. Can he play at fullback? Then you look at the left edge, there'll be no Sean Kenny-Dowell, no Ryan Hall. So could we see Conor Barley? You got Will Tate. Are we going to see Sam Wood potentially slot into the centres? There's going to be a few players playing in different positions on Friday night. So it's going to be really interesting how Willie Peters goes with some of these combinations.
Yeah, it is. And I think that it's good that he's going to be able to have the opportunity to put players in probably unfamiliar positions. That does, if we do need to have that cover where somebody might go off in a game, we need somebody to slot into fullback or a wing or a centre or wherever. At least they've had some experience of playing there and just sort of see how they get on. But Lewis Sidney's in the squad, isn't he? So I think it'd be quite interesting to see whether he's actually going to maybe look at both Ethan Ryan and Senior again on that right edge with 𝗕𝗂𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃.
Yeah. Can you imagine I'll have to check. I'm not sure what the rules are on friendlies, but the interchanges, I'm sure they'll increase the amount of interchanges that you can make. So it'd be interesting to see how much game time some of these players will get. But it's just good to see the Robins out on the pitch in the red and white. The club have announced that they'll be wearing the home kit for the next two friendlies. I've also just seen that Jordan Abdul's been announced as captain for the game. So it's going to be, obviously, in the absence of Sean Kenny-Dowell, 𝗕𝘂𝗱𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃. He did say, though, Willie Peters, didn't he, at the fans forum in November, that SKD will be captain, but then behind him there'll be a leadership group. So not necessarily one assistant captain, it'll be a group of players. So I'm guessing Jordan Abdul must feature as part of that. So it is going to be really interesting to see how they do. And on the shirts tomorrow night should be a new sponsor for the club. The University of Hull have decided to sponsor not just the men's first team, but the ladies' side, the PDRL side, the newly formed wheelchair side, of course, the netball side, the women's teams, etc. So a really positive move, and that's on the back of Evans Halshaw coming on board as a partner for the club. We've just seen SJS Flooring commit again. Fantastic service to them. Really big sponsors of the club, but also big supporters. The Chris Parks Media Suite, which has been recently renamed, refurbished by SGS. So there's some really exciting things both on and off the pitch, isn't there, James? And it's sometimes a bit hard to keep up with all the progress that is being made.
There is, and I think that's what I said earlier in the podcast. There's been lots of positive noise about through the whole pre-season, and as you said, getting all these new sponsors on, people like SGS coming back on board, the new sponsors like 𝗕𝘂𝗱𝗲𝗲, exactly as you say, the new teams, the wheelchair netball, the women getting through in, competing in the Challenge Cup, but also we've not even mentioned the new recruitments to the board, with Paul Sewell, James 𝗕𝘂𝗱𝗲𝗀, and David Kilburn, which really I think is a club set and putting a stake in the ground for saying actually to the likes of IMG, look, we're serious about developing this club, and we're going to be part of your plans. You're not going to be able to leave us out, because we're going to drive forward. And it's it's all great news. It's all great news.
Yeah, and you mentioned the board appointments there, James, and what it highlights to me now is, especially with the announcement at the back end of last season, the PDRL side. Just this week, we've had the announcement that the Rovers will be fielding a wheelchair side. We've seen netball come on board. We've seen, like you just said, the women's side competing in the Challenge Cup for the very first time. Rovers is much more now than just the men's first team, isn't it? There's a whole movement behind the scenes, and there seems to be a real professionalism coming to the club. But also it seems to be a club that really wants to serve its community, and we are a tight-knit group over in East Hull. And if you look at it as a whole now, the men's team, yes, it's the one that gets all the headlines, but that, I suppose, is just one piece of the jigsaw, isn't it now?
It is, and I think it is great. It's just really highlighting how important the club is to the East Hull community. And I think I was reading somewhere that was something like there's 300 people who are actually affiliated to the club in a playing capacity across the whole, from men's through to all the different, the women's, the PDRL, the wheelchair, netball, etc. And that's just fantastic to see. And like I said, I think if you look to the future of the game, the whole game does need to be expanding beyond its traditional bounds of rugby league. Leeds Rhinos have that. They've expanded into other areas as well. It's about building that community support and spirit, and giving the community a reason to come to the club and invest their hard earned. It's a struggle for a lot of people at the moment, but to get people to reason to give something to look forward to, is going to help in the future. It will help them in the future. Yeah,
definitely, and we'll talk more about the new board, etc. When we do a full pre-season review. So that'll be coming up before the Wigan game. There'll be another pre-season mini pod out just before the Leeds game, unless something major changes, and we'll do another one. There's plenty to talk about. If you haven't listened to it yet, listen to the Phil Hogan Heritage Cast. He's a guy with plenty of stories, especially some really interesting listens around the 1980 Challenge Cup final and his thoughts around there. So I'd urge you to go and listen to that. But again, we're excited now, James, aren't we, to see the Robins finally out on the pitch. It's almost time for the talking to be done and for the players now to start producing as we gear towards what I'm sure will be another exciting Super League campaign for Hull Kingston Rovers. But for now, please just remember, live, love, laugh and be happy.